according to reports, the Indiana Pacers seem to be entering into a rebuild or are now interested in possibly moving on from Sabonis and Caris LeVert. Should the Pistons be interested in any of these three guys? We'll talk about that on today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. This episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is a new app that helps you save money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need. It can even negotiate better deals on those you want to keep. Per usual, I'm your host, Kukahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. And I got to say, guys, from the last podcast till today, we gained a lot of subscribers. I believe we gained 40 subscribers overnight. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I appreciate the effort. We have to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. We have about, 23 days to go now. So we're sitting around, I think we are close to 800. I think we're at like 790 or something right now. But yeah, the best way to support the podcast, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't went over to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons and hit that red button, make sure you go do that now because it's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Goal is 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about Domantes Sabonis, Myles Turner, and Caris LeVert. Now, yes, none of those guys are Pistons. If you guys haven't, if you guys have been living under a rock or something, you guys haven't heard the rumors or the reports. Indiana Pacers seem to be entering into a rebuild and are now interested in moving on from their three core pieces, which are Sabonis, Turner, and LeVert. So, should the Pistons be interested in any of these guys? Should the Pistons be interested in Sabonis? Should they be interested in Turner, LeVert, the Michigan guy? We're going to talk about that on today's podcast. And luckily, I was able to get our good friend of the podcast, Bryce Simon, host of the Motor City Hoops podcast, on here again. You know, Bryce is always on here, so it's no shocker that I had to get him on here for this podcast. I think this is going to be a fun conversation. But thanks, Bryce, for coming on. How you doing, man?
Absolutely, I'm good. Just got done with high school practice. Followed that up with my oldest son's first and second grade practice. So ready to talk some Pistons now and close out the night.
Yeah, Bryce is a very busy man. I think I'm busy, but the schedule Bryce be telling me about is just, it's a crazy one, man. It's hectic. It's very crazy. I respect it. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, Bryce, I'll give you the floor to start off. Obviously, like I just said, Myles Turner, Domantes Sabonis, Caris LeVert. All of them seem to be available now for the Pacers. I'm assuming, my guess is that Brogdon is going to become available once the 8th comes around, or when is the free agent thing?
I thought it was the 15th.
The 15th? Okay, yeah, the 15th. I'm assuming he'll also be available once that time comes around. But yeah, those three guys are the ones circling the news now. The Pistons do seem like they have some assets, I think, that could possibly be maneuvered in a trade. Do you think the Pistons should be interested in any of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to be interested, right? Like, I think these are guys that fit a certain criteria for what this team needs. Like, I feel like Myles Turner is a guy that fits what we've talked about at times with this team. Like, not necessarily the pick and roll lob threat, but, he's a pick and pop guy. He can stretch the floor, and then he blocks shots. Obviously, at 6'11", can rebound. And so I think he fits a certain mold that the team needs. So he makes sense. Caris LeVert is, theoretically a guy that can really score on the wing. And I think that's the spot that you can definitely say the Pistons need is a wing scorer. And Sabonis might be the best player of the three. I don't even know if it's even debatable or not. So I think you have to be interested in these guys. What it comes down to is, what assets would it require to acquire those players?
All right, so for the first segment, we're going to be talking about this for a while throughout the podcast. It may last the entire podcast. Who knows? But for the first segment, let me just end this with asking you this, Bryce. If you had to pick one, and then we'll dive into it later, but just give me one player. If you had to pick one that you'd want the Pistons to go after, which one would it be?
I don't know why Myles Turner continues to intrigue me so much. I don't know why, because like I say, Sabonis is probably the best player, and I like his game. But there's just something about Myles Turner where I feel like that's a missing piece on this team. A guy, he could fit that role. So I guess Myles Turner.
All right, so now I'll take my turn now. So Myles Turner is also mine. And Bryce and all of you guys, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys know that I was extremely hyped saying, if the Pistons could somehow get Myles Turner, I'd be the happiest person alive. I've wanted Myles Turner on the Pistons for years. When they had Andre Drummond, I thought him and Andre would have been a great tandem together. Myles Turner can spread the floor out. They're both big. I would have loved to have them together. But even still, I would have loved to have Myles Turner on this team right now. For the other guys, so overall, yes, I think the Pistons should be interested in some of these guys and should at least call and see what it's about. Not so much Sabonis. I'm going to rule out Sabonis for me because Sabonis is the best player of the three, but I feel like obviously because of that, his value is also going to be much higher than the three. They're going to ask for more for Sabonis. I don't think the Pistons could really match. And if they did want to match, it'd probably cost way too much to where it wouldn't make sense for the Pistons anyways. And I don't think Sabonis really fits what the Pistons need also as well. Outside of the simply just add talent, I don't think the Pistons desperately are missing. I feel like you said, I think Myles Turner fills in a need that the Pistons need right now. So I'd really like Myles Turner on the Pistons. Caris LeVert, I don't know. You didn't really mention Caris LeVert as much. I'm not really going to mention Caris LeVert as much. He's not a great shooter. His shot creation intrigues me. Obviously, he's a Michigan guy. He went to Michigan, so guys like him. But I don't really think that he fits with this team either. I don't think the Pistons should be interested in him as much. I think he's a fine player. His shot creation is intriguing, but I don't think – and he's a little too injury prone for me as well. And so I don't think the Pistons would really be interested in him either. If you have anything you want to add with Caris LeVert, you can. If not, we can just keep it trucking.
Yeah, so my thing with LeVert is I actually really like Caris LeVert, and he's been a great story. That he had a really good year in Brooklyn, and then they brought in all the talent, and then all the trades happened, and then the health stuff, and it's just nice to see him healthy and playing. My thing with LeVert is I think he'd be intriguing. You are right. Like, as I look through the stats, he's not as good of a shooter percentage-wise as what I thought he might be. I would like LeVert if we weren't going to have to give away any of the young assets. And I just don't think that there's any way you acquire LeVert without having to do that. When we get into Myles Turner, I might be a little bit more willing to, get rid of a young asset. And I know we're going to talk about, do the Pistons have the assets to do this or not? So LeVert would definitely still intrigue me, but I agree there's probably no way it's going to happen based on what I'd want to give away.
All right, fair enough. I rule out LeVert because of the things you said, and also I just don't. He's not that great of a shooter, and like I said, his shot creation is intriguing. He definitely is a good story, like you mentioned. The health problems that he had once he got traded definitely was pretty scary. If I remember correctly, it was pretty scary stuff. So it definitely happy to see him healthy and stuff. And he's a fine player. A lot of teams are going to want him. I just don't think, for the reasons why you said, and for him not being that much of a shooter, I don't think the Pistons should be that interested in him. And I think we'll eventually I think we'll probably touch on Sabonis a little bit more too, but I think Sabonis is probably out the Pistons price range to a point where they probably won't even last on a phone call because I think he's that good of a player, and I think that they'll just be outbid. I don't think the Pistons would waste their time with him. But when we come back, we can. Oh, go ahead. You were about to say something. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. So I looked up the LeVert injury or health issue. It wasn't an injury, just because you're right. It was kind of like it was a scary thing. And so as long as what I Googled is correct, you can't always trust that. But I mean, there was a tumorous cancer in his kidney. Was, and they said the good news was they found it early enough before it spread anywhere else in his body. So like when you say it was serious, cancer, as we all know, cancer is a very serious thing in his kidney there. And so they say that trade may have saved his life because of the physicals and all that went along with it. So I just wanted to make sure we, kind of nailed that down because it was a scary thing for Caris LeVert.
Yeah, definitely a terrifying thing. And thank God that they were able to find that for him. So very happy that he's healthy now and able to play basketball and show how good of a player he is. But when we'll come back, we'll start talking about what kind of trade assets would the Pistons part way with, what would we part ways with for a trade for Myles Turner or Sabonis or LeVert. What packages would we put together? We'll talk about that when we come back from the break. But first, I got to tell you guys about some of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you a little bit about Calm. Do you want to know what makes LeBron James King James? Sleep. That's right. Sleep is his superpower. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation and has teamed up with LeBron James to help you activate the power of sleep. LeBron and Calm know that your mind is like any other muscle in your body, but you don't have to be a world champion to learn how to train it. Calm can help you train your brain so you sleep better, reduce your stress, and perform at your best, just like King James. For LeBron, sleep is a critical part of his mental fitness routine. As he says, quote, "Getting good sleep and finding time to rest is one of the most valuable things I can do for my body and mind. From the sound of rain falling on leaves to bedtime, calm puts me to sleep within minutes, which means I wake up ready for any challenge," unquote. So if you head to calm.com/LockedOnNBA for a limited time, you'll get 40% off a Calm premium subscription. With Calm, you have access to the nature scenes LeBron loves, like rain on leaves, and so much more, like sleep stories and meditations, so you can be ready for any challenges that life throws your way. Again, for a limited time, our listeners can join LeBron using Calm and get a 40% discount on Calm premium subscription at calm.com/LockedOnNBA. Unlock content to help you focus, ease stress, and sleep better. Get started at calm.com/LockedOnNBA. That's calm.com/LockedOnNBA. Then let me tell you about another one of our sponsors, your guys' favorite sponsor. And also, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, let me go ahead and take this down for a second. You guys will see I was actually eating one before we started the podcast. Of you see the peanut it's not the peanut butter version, it's the Ruby Chocolate Built Bar. So we're gonna go ahead and head to Built Bar as our next sponsor, the best protein bar on planet Earth. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar, filled with so many holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, but high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. And there's so many new flavors, you have a hard time choosing. Would you have raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream or peanut butter brownie? You guys know I said peanut butter brownie is my favorite. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and bow all the way through those holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something to keep you going. So throw one in your jacket or your purse. You never know when you're going to need it. Because it's the season of peace and love, don't bring up your favorite Built Bar flavor at family parties. People are so passionate about their favorite flavor, they'll fight for it and things could get out of hand. Are you guys friends with Santa? I know I am. He's coming around this Christmas for my dog Oatly. Well, tell Santa to throw a few Built Bars in those stockings. With so many flavors, they'd make anyone's Christmas morning a happy one. Want to cozy up with something warm? Here's a holiday secret. Dip your Built Bar into some hot cup of cocoa, let it melt a little bit, and give your beverage a little bit of Built Bar flavor. Plus, you'll have a nice melty Built Bar to go with it. Be sure to have a couple napkins on hand. It'll probably help you out a little bit. So, go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. So, Bryce, how do you feel about those Built Bars just now? Did that convince you to go get one?
I mean, I've been waiting for my delivery. I guess I have to wait till March when I have to fly all the way out, book 3-4 nights in a hotel for me and my wife just to get a single Built Bar from all the times I've come on the show.
Yeah, hey, it works that way sometimes, man. I had to wait like 2.5 months of doing the podcast before they sent me mine. So I mean, it is what it is. But I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And again, if you want to find the best way to support the podcast, head over to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. We have about 23, 24 days left. We gained like 40 subscribers overnight last podcast. So we're hovering around like 790. We're just like 200 away. Can we get there? I think we really can. If all of you guys to simply go support the podcast, Locked On Pistons on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. But let's get right back into it, Bryce. So let's start talking about packages, the trade for these guys. So me personally, I don't know if you have something up, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Caris LeVert off my screen because I don't have any interest in trading for him. I don't think the Pistons will. I don't think there's really a package for him. So if you have a package in Caris LeVert, I know you just said you don't think there's really possibly one out there, but if you have one, you can throw one out there before we move on.
No, we can go on. I know the one we want to work with, so we can. I won't waste our time.
Okay, so before we hit on who that is, Sabonis. What is there a package you think the Pistons could have for Domantes Sabonis that would make sense both sides, or do you think it'd just be overpaying for the Pistons to go after him?
I mean, my thing is the only young player that makes sense is obviously Cade, and the Pistons aren't doing that. And Jeremy Grant, you start to get equal value, but I saw someone tweet out this, like, why would Jeremy Grant make sense for the Pacers if they're going into straight rebuilding? The real hard part is there's just no draft picks to add to this stuff. Like that's where it gets dicey for the Pistons. We've talked all the way back to when I first started coming on the podcast with you and you on the Motor City Hoops about the treasure chest that Troy Weaver's, trying to build up. And the thing is, he's done it with some young players, but the draft pick thing hasn't necessarily came. And so I don't know. I don't know what the offer could be from the Pistons that would make any sense for the Pacers.
All right, so Bryce just brought something up, and we'll have Bryce on to talk about this one day, but I have already written this down in my notes of possible topics talking about in the future soon, and that is the draft pick. The Pistons are not able to trade a draft pick until what could be 2027 because it's owed to Houston whenever it converts, if it converts before then, or at least 2027. So that, when it happened, not a lot of people bat an eye at it because it was like, we don't have to worry about losing it. Now it's, will that come back to bite the Pistons? They can't make any trades for basically anything that involves a pick. If you wanted to go after a bigger star eventually in a year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they could. They're just not going to be able to. They don't have that first round pick. So should we start talking about that trade again? That's something that we'll talk about in a podcast coming up in the future. But yeah, I agree with you about Sabonis. I don't think that the Pistons really have a package that could go with Sabonis. One of the things I've thrown out, and I'm going to save that for when we talk about Myles Turner. There is one way they could do it. But like I said, I'm going to save it for when we talk about Myles Turner. But just like a straight swap, I don't think the Pistons really have anything. They can't offer a pick. I don't think they should offer a first-round pick for Sabonis anyways. And the only thing, like you said, that would make sense, I guess, is Jeremy Grant or possibly the package that I would consider for Myles Turner in Olynyk and Sadiq Bey. But I don't think that matches the value of Sabonis either. I think the Pacers would easily get a better deal than that. So I don't think the Pistons could realistically, even if they were interested in Sabonis, they could realistically go after him anyways. But let's go ahead and get into the guy that we both said we're more interested in and think the Pistons could possibly go after if they were interested in him. And that's Myles Turner. Would you like me to go first, Bryce, or do you want to go?
Yeah, because you kind of threw out one there, threw something interesting there. So, yeah, I want you to go with it, and then I'll come because I'm playing around on ESPN Trade Machine as we talk. So,
okay. All right, fair enough. So this is my idea. First of all, we're going to pull up Myles Turner's synergy chart up onto the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, if not, don't worry. Of course, we're going to read it out for you guys that are listening on the podcast. So Myles Turner, in the half-court offense or offense overall, points per possession, he's 91st percentile in the NBA. In transition, 91st percentile in the entire NBA. Overall half-court, 91st percentile in the entire NBA. Spot up, he's in the 81st percentile. Very good. Pick and roll, man, he's in the 54th percentile. That's a rating of good. Transition, excellent. 91st percentile. Cut, 98% percentile. Excellent. Offensive rebounds, 99th percentile. Excellent. This dude is just someone, listen, the thing with Myles Turner that people are going to bring up is that he doesn't shoot a lot. But that's actually something that I like about him. I like that he plays within his role. He's not going to force things. He's not going to ask for too many things. He knows what his role is within the offense. He's going to play that role in the offense. And the fact that he's shooting 40% from deep this season on almost 5 attempts a game, he's a legit stretch big, at least this season. And throughout his career, he's been shooting threes, except it's been more around 34, 35%. Actually, his career percentage before this year was right around 35% from beyond the arc. But either way, he's going to shoot the ball from beyond the arc. And this season, he's having career high marks. And that's just talking about his offense. Defensively, he's averaging 3 blocks a game over the past 3 years. He's an insane rim protector. He's a great defender. If you follow him on Twitter over the past few years, you'll know that he gets, anytime he gets snubbed from a defensive a team, you see him, he immediately gets upset. He starts tweeting about it because he really is one of the best defenders there is out there. He's crazy good on defense. So I would love for the Pistons to have this guy. I think he would be great with the Pistons. I think he fills the role offensively, a guy who's going to play his role. He's able to bring something to the table, which would be pick and popping. And also, while he doesn't shoot a ton of shots a game, while he doesn't shoot a lot from inside the arc, he just doesn't overall shoot the ball a lot. He just plays within himself. At the rim this year, where is it? I just lost it. Where'd it go? At the rim this year, he's shooting 83%. So when he gets down there, he's able to finish. When he gets down there, he's able to score down there if he gets the ball down there. He's tall. He's 6'11". He has a pretty decent wingspan. He's able to get up. He's able to finish the ball around the hoop. I love him on the team. I would absolutely love to have Myles Turner and I think the Pistons have a package that I think could possibly get him. Bryce, we're running a little bit longer, so I'll say this. I want you to tell us what you like about Myles Turner, and then we'll go to ad break. In the third segment, we'll talk about the packages we think we could throw out there for Myles Turner.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, it's a lot of the stuff you outlined. The shooting we've talked about.
Real quick. Let me. I'll put just to back up some of the things. I'll put the synergy. I didn't mean to take it off while you were talking. I'll
No, you're good. No, I'd say just to back up a lot of the stuff. So the shooting obviously is something that's really intriguing. As you know, as the listeners know, I like a big guy that can stretch the floor. I think that just it opens the spacing of the floor. You bring up a really good point that the fact that he's not a high usage guy that's going to take a lot of shots actually probably plays into like a Cade Cunningham, and then whoever, like the Pistons are going to end up probably with the top 3 pick again. So like if the ping pong balls fall the right way, like you're bringing in another guy that might be taking a lot of shots as well. So you don't necessarily need that. But I really like the rim protection coming off a game on Monday night where we saw the Pistons just get killed in the paint at the rim, give up a ton of paint points. If I had one thing I wish that Myles Turner did better that would make me more excited about him, it would be rebounding the basketball. Like that's not something, a guy for his size that blocks shots and stuff, you're like, oh, I bet he rebounds at a high rate. And he rebounds at a much lower rate actually than like Isaiah Stewart. So that would be my one thing about him. And then also you brought up the synergy pick and roll man stats. I would just be interested to know, like, where is he at in the league, like in his career? Like I know right now it said what good, like is he considered at least a quality big man in that area? Can he catch some lobs? Because that's something we've talked a lot about. And there's not going to be a whole lot of room for another big if we bring him in and keep Stewart.
So as of right now, he's in the 54th percentile in the NBA as a pick and roll big man. But I can go to last year, since that's probably a bigger sample size. Last year, he was in the 82nd percentile as a pick and roll man, which is very good.
How many possessions?
He had 82 possessions. It was the second most used. Did he get hurt last year? How many games did he play last year? He doesn't have very many possessions of that one last year.
Well,
he only played 47 games last year.
And I say it was a shortened season too, so.
All right, so I can go back. Let's go back even one more year, and then we'll go to the ad break. Let's go back to 2019-2020. Pull up Myles Turner. He was in. So in 3 years ago, he was in the 41st percentile, even worse than those 2 years, and that was his leading possessions as a pick and roll man, 199 possessions. So last full sample size, I would probably be 2019-2020.
So a little bit of a mixed bag, but we're talking about maybe an average, at least an average.
Yeah, and if you go a year before that, you're looking at him, he's in the 42nd percentile, which calls him average. So, yeah, you're probably looking at an average to possibly above average pick and roll guy.
And I don't know I don't watch a ton of Pacers games. I don't know about their guard play, if he's necessarily playing with guards who excel in that area as well. Like both of those things play off of each other. And we think, at least in Detroit, that we have 2 guards that can be really good in those situations. So that may play a factor as well. Like I don't watch enough Pacers games to know if Malcolm Brogdon just really excels in those situations or not.
That's fair. That's definitely a very good point to look at as well. Actually, before we go to the ad break, I'm running this on a little bit longer. But actually, so Malcolm Brogdon showed up 3 years ago. So the two of his best seasons as a pick and roll guy so far have came, at least from Synergy's charts, were with Malcolm Brogdon. So maybe Malcolm Brogdon helped him out a little bit.
Helped him better? Okay.
Yeah, helped him play a little bit better. So, but who knows? I'll definitely reach out to Locked On Pacers host Tony East about this a little bit later on. I'll talk to you guys a little bit about it more tomorrow. But we're going to go to the ad break now. And when we come back, we'll talk about some of the packages that we would put together for Myles Turner. If the Pistons were able to make a trade, what packages would we put together to send over to Indiana? I have a feeling that we might ruffle some feathers. I know I'm going to at least ruffle some feathers. That was what I say. But before we get into any of that, let me tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, BetOnline AG. BetOnline has you covered all season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. The football team that I'm rooting for since the line stuck, by the way, everybody, Los Angeles Rams. I need my guy, number 9, Stafford, to go ahead and have some success over there. But anyways, BetOnline remains your number 1 spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and it's the easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So again, head to their new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you want to find the best way to support the podcast, again, I've been telling you guys over and over and over, head over to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. We're hovering around 790 right now. Let's try to stack up another 40 today. Try to get there by the end of the year. I'd really appreciate it. My birthday is actually, here's the way to guilt you guys. My birthday is in 3 days. Best birthday present would be to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys could get that done, it'd be the best birthday present of all time. But anyways, Bryce, let's go ahead and get into these packages. We've been teasing these packages and possible trades all podcast. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'll let you go first since I went first on the last one.
So
what kind of packages would you put together?
Yeah, I'm trying to put it together here. And my first one, honestly, I think was revolved around Isaiah Stewart. I think Kelly Olynyk has to be involved, right, just to make the money work. So what about something like Stewart, Olynyk, and Josh Jackson? I don't know that gets it done, though. I don't think that gets it done.
All right, fair enough. You got any other ones?
I mean, you brought up – I don't want to take yours. So, I mean, here's what I'll say. Koo. It has to be at least one of the 3 sophomores. Okay, the second year guys. I don't think there's any way you get any of those Pacers players, whether it's Turner, LeVert, whatever, without attaching at least one of those young guys to that. And then it just becomes, do you also add in Frank or Hami or Josh or whoever? And then, like I said, probably Kelly Olynyk as a salary filler just to make the money work.
All right, so are you kicking it off to me? You want me to take over now?
You can take over.
I'm gonna ruffle some feathers here. I think. All right, so this is the first thing I want to make known to you guys before I even say mine. Other teams do not want your trash. If you think a player is trash and you think a player sucks, more than likely the opposing team also thinks he's trash and he sucks and they don't want him either. So I saw a few people saying, "Oh, I would get rid of anybody besides Jimmy Grant, Cade, Killian Hayes, Sadiq, Isaiah Stewart." Like, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to trade for anybody then. So just say that you're not interested in them then. That's fine if you want to say you're not interested in them, but just say that because you're not getting them for Corey Joseph and Trey Lyles. It's not going to happen. So that's why I want to say first. I really like Myles Turner. I want to make that known again. I seriously think he would be a great fit for the Pistons moving forward. I think the Pistons, he's only 25 too. He's young. He's been in the league for 7 years and he's at 25. That's crazy. But I really like him. Anyways, this is the trade I'm thinking about. Now, Bryce, I have 2 of them. I think the last one was actually super interesting. We can talk about that one. But this is the first one that's going to ruffle feathers. I would trade Kelly Olynyk and Sadiq Bey for him. That would be my offer. I'd offer Kelly Olynyk and Sadiq Bey on December 15th, whenever that, I think that, like you said, that's when it becomes like possible trade free agents that you just signed. And I'll tell you guys this much. This is where I'm really going to piss some of you guys off. I would do that in a heartbeat. Like I'd do it. If they called and they said Kelly Olynyk, Sadiq Bey for Myles Turner, I say, yep, hang up the phone. And then before they can backtrack or think about it, I'm accepting it. Because this is the thing. Kelly Olynyk obviously has no purpose for the Pistons' future. I don't think he really is in the future plans at all. He's just for this year, possibly next year. He could be even traded next year. So he's not really part of the future. You have to part with one of your young guys in order to get this trade off. I don't think Stu has as much value as Sadiq does. And I think the Pistons, I honestly think Turner and Stewart could possibly be a good fit together, possibly. And if they aren't, Stu just slides into the backup spot, which I've said on the podcast, I think might be his best case for his career to be like a really good backup center. Now, he could be a starting center. Let's see if it happens. If it does, great. But I think he could be probably a high-quality backup center, which allows him to bring his high energy, where it's, high energy kind of stuff like that. I feel like more is like taking advantage of off the bench. Not so much, it kind of gets exposed a little bit in the starting lineup. Him coming off the bench is just a pure energy guy who hustles, try to kicks guys, pardon my language, asses, try to push them around, get rebounded, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be better suited off the bench if you had Myles Turner. Or you could play them together. Either one, I think that would make it interchangeable. And then Sadiq Bey, I think he probably has more value, even though he's played like objective trash this year. He just hasn't been that good this year. I still think he probably has more value across the league. I think teams know that he probably isn't as bad a shooter as he's shooting right now based off his sample size last year. And I think that his archetype that he should be billed as a 3-and-D guy is viable in the NBA. So I think teams would probably want to take a risk on Sadiq, or not. Actually, it's not even a risk. Let me not say a risk, but actually would want to take on Sadiq. So I think he probably has the most value possibly out of the Pistons young guys. I think Killian could possibly be creeping up towards that. I think he's starting to, like I said in the last podcast with Bryce, that he's starting to fill a prototype or an archetype where teams are like, okay, that could actually be pretty useful if we can continue down this avenue. So he might be creeping up there right now in value, but I think Sadiq still is the highest. I'd move Sadiq for Myles Turner. I think Sadiq is struggling a lot right now. You guys have known that I've had concerns about Sadiq. I think that what Sadiq brings in my world as a 3-and-D guy, you guys know that I've maintained all along that I think that's his best build. I think the Pistons could replace that down the road eventually at some point. And I think Myles Turner is that good. And I'll maintain that. I think when Myles Turner gets traded, he's going to get traded and people are going to be like, damn, that dude's pretty damn good. Where'd he come from? I say that's going to happen. That's how I think Myles Turner is freaking really good. So I just think he's that type of good. He would mesh really well with Killian and Cade in the backcourt. He would obviously provide some much needed interior defense. He's incredible interior defensive wise, and he can stretch the floor. I think you could probably get more out of him at the rim if you really wanted him to and asked him to shoot more, which I don't think he will. You need him to. I think, like Bryce mentioned, with the upcoming pick, you don't really want another high usage guy. I think that's one of the Pistons' problems right now. They have a bunch of guys that want to do too much. Turner's one of those guys who accepts his role, knows what he can and can't do, and will accept a role in the offense. I really like Myles Turner. That's the one I'd do. I'd do Kelly Olynyk, Sadiq Bey, see if they bite on that. What do you think about that, Bryce?
So real quick, just my self-plug. You taught me this. I have an article coming out for Detroit Bad Boys next couple of days that talks about this, outlines and video breakdowns of the Killian Hayes stuff you're talking about. I did a little breakdown on that from stuff we've been talking about. So check that out. So my only question with this trade would be, do you really think that this is enough for the Pacers? Because I think the league probably sees Sadiq Bey as a 3-and-D guy right now, at least what he's shown. All right. I think what it would come down to is what could then they flip Kelly Olynyk into beyond that? Could they then take Kelly Olynyk and trade him to a contender that would be willing to part ways with a couple other guys? Because Kelly Olynyk makes 0 sense for the Pacers. But if they had another trade lined up where they could then flip him for, let's say, a first-round pick and a young player, and then from their perspective, that's what they're getting is Sadiq and whatever that other trade is, maybe it makes sense. But I don't know, like sitting here in the moment, I don't necessarily hate that idea. Like we've always talked about that eventually we're going to have to part ways with some of these young guys. And I do think Myles Turner fits a role on this team, and he's a younger player. He's only 25. So I think that fits a timeline that, as you have said, speeds up or got sped up when we drafted Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, and just real quick before I say the second one, timeline's definitely been sped up. I started to go back a little bit on that at the beginning of the season, but Cade's already getting pissed with losing, and I don't think you want to play with that. Obviously, it's only 20 games in. It's not like, oh, come on, 20 games in. I understand. I'm just saying I don't think that's something the Pistons should want to play around with. Like, okay, this season, whatever. I think probably as soon as next year, they should at least show him that they're trying to win more games because he's already getting pissed about 20 games in. I don't think that's something you want to play around with. I really don't.
I think this is a big offseason. I think for Troy Weaver, I mean, whether it matters or not, I think the fan base has started to be like, like question things just a little bit. And there's some money coming off the books. You have Cade. Hopefully we're going to end up with Jabari or Paolo or one of those guys. And so I think I'm not saying like get into the play-in game or whatever, but like winning games at a somewhat consistent rate, I think is going to be something that this team is going to want to see itself doing next season.
All right. Yep. I agree with you. So let me throw this second one. This is the real one. I honestly, I'm mad at myself for not including this one. You know what I think I might do? I might clip this part of the podcast and put it out as a separate YouTube video because this is the part I really want to talk about. I'm mad at myself for not making this earlier in the podcast. All right. So Bryce, let me just answer this question first before I even say the trade. Are you willing to part with Jeremy Grant for Myles Turner?
No.
Okay. All right. So I figured you'd say no. However, I'm gonna say this anyways. This is the trade offer that I have. And I said on Twitter, I think this is the most interesting part about this. I think this actually makes a lot of sense. So what I've been thinking about, so obviously, like you said, the Pacers won't want Jeremy Grant because they're rebuilding. They won't want, he's not really helping them with their rebuild. So, but what could happen is recently, as part of guys that, part of the names of people, the names that contenders may want. And I think what the Pistons could do, and I would do this, Bryce, I'm not going to lie to you, I would do this quickly. I would ship Jeremy Grant off, make it a 3-team trade. You ship Jeremy Grant off to one of these contenders that have assets. Let's go ahead and just throw out there, let's say Golden State. Because Golden State, I think, is one of those contenders that people talk about that have a lot of assets that can move somebody for one of these guys. So let's say you ship Jeremy Grant off to Golden State. Golden State then sends some of their assets, whatever assets it is, you send that to Indiana. And then Indiana sends Myles Turner to Detroit. I would do that. That right there, I'd do it, and I'd walk away happy as hell. I'd walk away happy as hell with it. This is why too. And it doesn't have to be Golden State. It could be LA. I know LA fans and everyone's trying to hype up THT as this big, asset. I mean, if Indiana thinks that, if other teams think that he is, then okay, you can throw THT in there, send him to Indiana, because I know the Lakers want Jeremy Grant, so you send Jeremy Grant there, and then Myles Turner comes to Detroit. Let me just say this is why I would do this. But then you can argue back with me and tell me why you think I'm wrong. So Jeremy Grant is shooting 41% from the field this year. He's shooting 32% from deep. I think it's been made very clear over the past year and a half that he's not that good as a primary guy, which is fine. Like we talked about on the podcast, he's not – the Pistons, I feel like their outlook is like 2 or 3 years down the line where he doesn't have to be the main guy and he's able to be your fourth guy. Fair enough. That's fine. However, I am close. I tweeted this out. I said I'm close to having a breakdown and just freaking out and losing it. I said I was close. I'm getting close to this saying that I think Jeremy Grant is straight up harming the development of some of the young guys. I'm getting close to saying that because some of the he's starting to remind me a little too much, Bryce, of Josh Smith, man, when he was with the Pistons. Because he's taking way too many long twos. Now, maybe I'm just haunted by the long twos of Josh Smith, and it just gives me PTSD. But I can't keep watching it. I hate watching it. I hate it. I hate it so much. And I do think that the way Jeremy plays, I do think there's probably a legit argument to say it's counterproductive to some of the development of the younger guys, at least for me. And I really do think that Myles Turner, I think Myles Turner fits what the Pistons need. I think he fills a bigger hole for the Pistons than what I think Jeremy does right now. Myles Turner as that interior guy who's straight up able to defend the rim, elite guy. He's also able to spread the floor. He's young. He's cheaper than Jeremy Grant right now, that's not a big deal, but he is. And I feel like a guy who this is a key part for me. You pointed it out. I'm glad you heard it when I said it, but this is seriously a key part to me. A guy who's able to do all that and accepts his role in offense and knows what he is and what he isn't and will do what the team needs. Not going to ask for more touches. If you need him to get more touches, okay, he'll go. If you don't want him to do it, he'll go do that. Like, that's a big thing for big men. I think that's, if you go back years ago, that's a big thing with Pistons fans with Andre Drummond. They always wanted him just like to accept a role and kind of cut down on his touches, and they thought that would be something that would help him reach another status. Not everyone's able to do that. And Myles Turner knows his role. He doesn't ask to do too much. And in his role, I think he's pretty damn great at it. And I think, like you said, with another top pick coming up possibly, another guy who could possibly be taking up touches, another guy who could possibly be taking up shots. I don't know. Like, we're saying as fans and people looking forward, yeah, Jeremy will just be the fourth guy in a few years. Are we sure that Jeremy will be willing to then, say, I'll just take being a fourth guy now? I don't want my touches now? Because I think the whole point of him coming to Detroit was so he could get touches. So I feel like that's actually something that we've all just like forgotten about and not talked about. And I actually thought about yesterday. Are we sure that Jeremy's going to accept just not, going back to the player he was in Denver, basically, when the Pistons want to win? Are we sure he's going to want to do that? I think it's pretty clear when the Pistons want to win, that's the player he's going to have to be. He's not going to be able to be this guy that he is right now. So that's why I do that trade. I did a long-winding response right there, Bryce. We're at 40 minutes. We're going to extend this podcast a little bit longer. Who cares? I don't care. I'm sorry, Nick, if you're listening to this and you get mad at me for making it longer. I'm sorry, but I think this is a pretty important topic. We'll go a little bit longer. Bryce, respond to what I just said. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I'm ready. I'm ready to get yelled at.
No, I'm not gonna you bring up a good point with Jeremy Grant, and is he willing to accept the role that we all think, like what we think is just the natural progression for his time in Detroit? And it could be like the Pistons didn't expect to get Cade Cunningham. He may not have expected they would get Cade Cunningham. If we would have drafted Jalen Green, I think it'd be completely different. Jeremy would still be the face of the franchise because Jalen Green doesn't have that personality. I don't even know if Evan Mobley has that personality. The Pistons ended up with what I believe the one guy in the draft who has all those other intangibles to be the face of a franchise and be that dude. And I'm not saying it's Jeremy's fault, but he may be like, man, why I came here to be that for the next few years, and doesn't want to take a back seat. Now, I think he's been a little bit better the last few games. There was a few game stretch where I was pretty worried about it. I was pretty nervous, and I thought there was some stuff going on there. So you bring up a good point there. Is he willing to slowly take the back seat as we acquire these other players that we're going to acquire that can really score the basketball? I put the trade together on NBA Trade Machine. So let me see what your thought is here. Myles Turner to the Pistons, Jeremy Grant to the Warriors, Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moses Moody to the Pacers. That trade actually works, money-wise.
I'd do it. I'm not sure Golden State would do that. I don't know if Golden State would give up that many for Myles Turner, not Myles Turner, for Jeremy Grant. But I would do that if it was the Pistons. I think the Pacers would do it too. I think the Pacers would accept that.
Hollinger says +5 wins, but obviously Wiseman hasn't played this year, so he doesn't he's not really factoring into that. So
it would depend. I think the thing with that trade right there, it would depend if Golden State believes Jeremy Grant's going to take them. I'm not sure if Golden State is. I'm not sure if Jeremy Grant's high on Golden State's list or not. I know they're in the market for possibly trading somebody that's like a difference maker before the deadline. But I know from what we've seen that Jeremy Grant's higher on LA's and Atlanta and some other teams. I don't know if he's as high on with Golden State.
And I think the other thing is Wiseman's short-term health and what they think they can get from Wiseman this year. Because I know Steph Curry's doing crazy things, but he's not young. And so I think the Warriors have to think they have a pretty somewhat short window right now. And so it's if they don't really think Wiseman is going to be healthy enough or able to contribute enough to a championship this year or next year, then I think it can make sense for them to go get a guy like Jeremy Grant who could play. He's probably coming off the bench on that team, right? I mean,
they could possibly slide Draymond down if they wanted to the 5
and play him at play him at the 3, maybe.
Yeah,
play Grant at the 3. So, but. No, you got Wiggins at the 3. Yeah, he's not starting at the 3. Yeah. So yeah, you'd have to slide Draymond down. There's gonna be lineups where they're playing small like that. So I don't know. I think there's a factor there where it would make sense for the Warriors, depending on what they've seen from Moody and Kuminga as well. But none of those guys are playing a factor for this team right now. And I think this is a team that needs to go try to win a championship this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why I think. It would be I would do it, Bryce. I know you said you wouldn't trade Jeremy for Myles Turner, but I would do it. I would entertain trying to get a 3-team trade out there. I'll give Jeremy to a contender out there somewhere. Give us Myles Turner, the net contender, instead of sending the product or the assets to us. Just send it over to Indiana and move on. I would do that trade. I really think it was a good one.
I have no problem trading Jeremy if Jeremy wants out or if Jeremy's okay with it. My issue has always been I only have one scenario I don't like, and that's if we traded him and he's, and then all of a sudden it's no, I wanted to be in Detroit. I wanted to be there. They decided to go somewhere else. Everything he said, signing with the Pistons, and honestly, what he's done on the court means too much to me as a fan to just cut bait based on, just asset management or whatever. I just think that's a bad look, and I think that stuff matters. We've talked about it multiple times. I know we're really up against it now, but I thought the way they handled where they sent Derrick Rose, how they handled Blake Griffin, all that stuff, I think that stuff matters, especially Derrick Rose. He ended up where he wanted to be. I don't care that we didn't end up getting much in return. That stuff matters, and it comes back to you at a certain point.
Fair enough. So let me know what you guys think. about this. Would you trade for Myles Turner, Sabonis, or LeVert? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter if you're listening to this on podcast at Kooky Hill. Thank you, Bryce, for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys go check out Bryce and his podcast, the Motor City Hoops podcast. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Motor City Hoops. Doing a great job. Also, go over, check out his work over at Detroit Bad Boys. He's doing a great job. Like I said, it's a great follow. Go check him out. Thank you guys for listening to today's podcast. I appreciate it. Thank you for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. And then also go make Locked On Bets your second listen, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. We'll probably talk about this a little bit more later in the week as well, but we're really running up against the clock. My bosses are going to kill me, but it is what it is. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And anybody who's listening to it still, we're doing a mailbag podcast on Friday. So let me know, send me some questions, and we'll be sure to answer those. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Enjoy this game tonight against the Wizards, I believe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.